On June 4th of 1942, during the Battle of Midway, U.S.S. Yorktown, the first of the Yorktown-Class aircraft carriers, was crippled by the Japanese aircraft carrier Hiryu and was later finished off by Japanese submarine I-168. Coincidentally, the Japanese thought they sank the flagship of the Pacific Fleet, the U.S.S. Enterprise. But little they knew, they picked the wrong sister to mess with. U.S.S. Yorktown, America's daughter. U.S.S. Yorktown served with the United States Navy, being named after the Siege of Yorktown in 1781, the final major land engagement of the American Revolutionary War that was won decisively by the Continental Army, led by George Washington, with support from Marquis de Lafayette and the French Army, defeating the British. She was laid down on May 21st of 1934 at the Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company, being launched on April 4th of 1936, being sponsored and christened by the First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt. Fun fact, she would also sponsor and christen her later successor, Yorktown II. Yorktown would be commissioned on the 30th of September of 1937, and the carrier commenced training in Hampton Roads, Virginia, conducting carrier qualifications. Yorktown can also carry 90 aircraft, and her facilities included 3 elevators, 2 flight deck catapults, and 1 hangar deck catapult. She also carried anti-air defenses of 8 single 38 caliber guns, 4 quad 75 caliber guns, and 24 50 caliber machine guns. On the 20th of April 1939, Yorktown was reassigned to the Pacific Fleet, commencing a regular routine of operations, and she would receive a new RCA CXAM radar in 1940, and at the same time, she would have her signal bridge atop the tripod foremast, and several 50 caliber machine guns were fitted in galleries. Yorktown would be assigned to Pearl Harbor, to which she commenced patrols in the Pacific and even logged 17,642 miles from Newfoundland to Bermuda, enforcing American neutrality. The war would actually get closer as the time go by, but on December 7th of 1941, that moment of peace was soon shattered. While it really needs no introduction, on December 7th, 1941, Japanese warplanes attacked the Pacific headquarters, Battleship Row, and Army airfields of Pearl Harbor without any warning, damaging or sinking 16 warships. What the Japanese did not target were the U.S. submarine bases and repair yards, fuel tank storage facilities, and the 3 aircraft carriers that were nowhere to be found. Her sister Enterprise was 215 miles west of Oahu, returning from a secret mission delivering Marine fighter planes to Wake Island. Fortunately, their return was delayed by severe weather on the return voyage, and she wouldn't arrive to Pearl Harbor until the next day, to which she had a first-hand account of the devastation.
What are they doing? When she went over, everyone below deck was probably trapped inside.
Did you know anyone aboard Arizona?
Yeah. My roommate from the academy, Lieutenant Roy Pierce.
U.S.S. Lexington was out at sea, thus sparing her from the attack as they were tasked with an emergency mission to ferry Marine fighter planes to Midway Island. Lady Lex was 500 miles southeast of Midway. U.S.S. Saratoga recently arrived in San Diego, completing an interim dry docking in Bremerton, Washington. The attack caused outrage, and thus it led to the United States entry into the Second World War the next day on December 8th. On December 16th, Yorktown departed from Norfolk for the Pacific, being loaded with the new Oerlikon 20mm guns, and reached San Diego 2 weeks later. thus being the flagship for Rear Admiral Frank Fletcher's Task Force 17. The carrier's first mission was to escort a convoy carrying Marine reinforcements to American Samoa, departing San Francisco on January 6, 1942, thus covering the movements of the Marines to Pago Pago and Tutuila. In the company with her sister ship Enterprise, both departed Samoan waters on January 25th and headed to the Marshall Islands to take part in the first American offensives of the Marshalls-Gilbert raids. Yorktown would partake in the Battle of the Coral Sea in May of 1942, to which she made history alongside the U.S.S. Lexington in the first ever carrier versus carrier engagement, going after the Japanese strike force, successfully damaging the Japanese carrier Shokaku, forcing her to retire from the fight. During the battle, a Japanese bomb struck and killed 66 crewmen within the hull, and despite the destruction and the heavy casualties, the carrier's damage control teams kept her operational, and Yorktown would lift back to Pearl Harbor on May 27, 1942 to repair flight deck holes, fractured seams, and interior ruptured compartments. While the damage is extensive and it can use 2 weeks to fully repair the ship, U.S. leadership expedited the repairs and U.S. Navy yard workers worked around the clock, patching up holes at the flight deck with wood and steel, getting Yorktown back in operation within 48 hours. The Battle of Coral Sea would be the first naval action to which neither side sighted nor fired upon another, attacking over the horizon of aircraft carriers, and this would even prevent Shokaku and Zuikaku from partaking in the next upcoming battle. 3 days later, she departed Pearl Harbor, and she would join her sisters U.S.S. Enterprise and the U.S.S. Hornet for a decisive, but also a tactical location. Codebreakers at Station Hypo with the U.S. Navy cryptanalyst Commander Joseph Rochefort broke the Japanese naval code JN-25 ahead of the Battle of Midway. Station Hypo intercepted messages identifying an upcoming target with the code AF, but they lacked proof of what it meant. Rochefort instructed the U.S. garrison on Midway Atoll to transmit an unencrypted plain text message, setting a trap that their water distillation plant has broken down. American listening posts intercepted the message from the Japanese, stating that AF was short of fresh water. And now armed with that knowledge of that AF is Midway, Admiral Chester Nimitz positioned American carriers in an ambush in what would be a decisive battle and the turning point of the war in the Pacific. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto sought to capture Midway Atoll to draw out and destroy the U.S. Pacific Fleet carriers, neutralizing the United States as a naval threat. But from what they don't know is that the Yorktown sisters already lay northwest of Midway and took the Japanese by surprise. Japanese planes already launched a full-scale air assault that damaged Midway Island's air base. A second wave was also ordered to have aircraft rearmed for the island, with the U.S. torpedo bombers launching a series of daring but also unsuccessful attacks. The low-level torpedo attacks also drew the Japanese down to the deck. SPD Dauntless dive bombers arrived overhead, pummeling bombs into the carriers. U.S. dive bombers fatally crippled 3 Japanese carriers. the Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, turning their fully fueled and armed planes into infernos, thus flat-footing and destroying them in a matter of minutes. Enterprise's planes hit Akagi and Kaga, destroying them effectively, while Yorktown's dive bombers attacked Soryu, making 3 lethal hits with 1,000-pound bombs and setting her on fire. They caught the Japanese carriers by surprise in the middle of refueling and rearming operations, causing devastating fires and explosions. Hiryu escaped the initial devastation and launched 2 retaliatory strikes with dive bombers and torpedo planes that would disable Yorktown as vengeance on the loss of these 3 carriers. Hiryu's bomber planes launched and were intercepted by U.S. Wildcat fighters, to which most of the bombers were shot down, but 7 broke through. The first broke through the flight deck and deep inside, and a second hit the smokestack, crippling 5 of her 9 boilers, and a third would also strike the flight deck, and this would render the Yorktown dead in the water, thus forcing the Yorktown's damage control teams to restore power and allow the ship to reach 18 knots and be able to launch more fighters. A second wave was launched, consisting of torpedo bombers, striking Yorktown with 2 torpedoes, forcing the crew of Yorktown to abandon ship. Later that day, scout planes from the Yorktown spotted Hiryu, thus relaying the information to the dive bombers from the Enterprise, to which they tracked down and mortally damaged Hiryu by putting in 4 devastating bombs, igniting fires on her flight deck, rendering her flight deck incapable of launching further sorties or defending herself. Enterprise's dauntless dive bombers would make sure the U.S.S. Yorktown's death would not be in vain. Hiryu was delivered the final punishment from the Enterprise, blown off the forward elevator, the ruptured fuel lines, and triggered unconditional fires. Hiryu was abandoned and scuttled by the Japanese torpedoes the following morning. As Yorktown was towed for salvage on the 6th of June, Japanese submarine I-168 discovered the disabled carrier and achieved a firing position, to which the U.S.S. Hammann was assisting the survivors of the Yorktown. They went to general quarters and fired their 20mm guns in an attempt to explode the torpedoes. One would strike amidships and broke her back, thus jackknifing and went down rapidly. 2 of the torpedoes from the salvo would also strike Yorktown. After the Hammann sank, there was a violent underwater explosion. The likely cause of this was the depth charges and the torpedoes detonating altogether, thus causing 80 more deaths in the water. Those who survived were taken aboard the Benham and the Balls. The catastrophic damage and the rapid flooding proved insurmountable, and the damage control crew was forced to abandon ship. And with her battle flag flying, she rolled upside down and sank in over 16,600 feet of water. In comparison, she would be 4,100 feet more down than the wreck of the RMS Titanic in comparison. At the end of the battle, 141 crew members died on the Yorktown, and as mentioned moments ago, 80 died in the waters after Hammann sinking. Japan lost 4 aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, and ironically, all 4 of these Japanese carriers were the ones responsible for the attack on Pearl Harbor. Zuikaku and Shokaku would meet their fates later, with 248 aircraft being destroyed. U.S. only lost Yorktown and Hammann, with approximately 150 aircraft destroyed. The battle was decisive, thus being the turning point and shifted the war of the Pacific's favor towards the United States, thus forcing Japan to halt their aggressive expansive and force them into a defensive role. Intelligence-wise, code breakers of Station Hypo intercepted and deciphered Japanese communications, to which allowed them to ambush the invasion force. At the conclusion of the Second World War, Yorktown earned 3 battle stars for her World War II service, to which she played a significant part in stopping the Japanese expansion and turning the tide of war at Coral Sea and Midway. She would later have her name be reused as one of the 24 Essex-class aircraft carriers, being the Fighting Lady herself, the U.S.S. Yorktown II. She was originally going to be named the Bonhomme Richard, but was renamed after the loss of Yorktown at Midway. Today, this carrier can be visited at Patriots Point as a museum ship at Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, to which she was preserved after decommissioning in 1970 to become a museum ship in 1975. On May 19th of 1998, Yorktown was found and photographed by Dr. Robert Ballard, to which, as we all know, who dived down to the wreck sites of two known shipwrecks, the RMS Titanic and the German battleship Bismarck. The wreck of the Yorktown lays 3 miles deep and is sitting in an upright position, with her paint and equipment still visible. On April 19th and 20th of 2025, NOAA Ocean Exploration did a live stream exploration of the wreck via ROV and discovered a 1941 Ford Super Deluxe station wagon along with 3 SBD Dauntless dive bombers. The U.S.S. Yorktown was one tough carrier, being the sister to the later famous U.S.S. Enterprise and her little sister, the U.S.S. Hornet. Yorktown saw resilience after being wounded in battle in the Coral Sea to making it back to Pearl Harbor, where she underwent repairs. In 3 days, she was back in service to fight alongside with her sisters at Midway, to where she met her end and died a heroic death. Let us not forget the men that fought and died at the Battle of Midway 84 years ago.